because we have made an interview for the next section about the global or in the global south with Ola Hassanain, who's studied on the Royal Academy of Art in The Hague, and where she's in the department of interior architecture and furniture. But she's in the same time in Khartoum and in Utrecht. And I think the interview we had the chance to make this morning is very fruitful, and I invite to hear her position.
So at first, Ola, thanks a lot to accept to present us, to exchange together. And sorry for my English, is a little bit bad.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
The goal of this discussion is really to try to understand what happened into this. We can say 25, but we can also say 50 years. So the time is not so important when globalization is starting. But what was this evolution, and how you perceived it in your country, but also in your problematic?
I think for me it has been a shift. A very clear, I guess, breaking of a lot of the binaries, of course, that we were also taught through our architectural education, primarily in that dichotomy of the private and public, both in its spatial organization, but also, of course, in ownership, and also the economic value of certain locations in the city. I think I've been reading it as a kind of gradual camouflaging of a lot of what should have at least some form of comprehensive legal framework, or at least a trace of paperwork. And I think through a lot of the research that I've been doing also with some of my partners in Khartoum, Studio Urban, and also several kind of university collaborations, is that there's been a kind of sinking of all of these organizing basically of knowledge, and the reality of how the city exists and how it expands, and the relationship, of course, of the urban to rural, or parts of Sudan that have been kind of left a little bit kind of neglected. I think one of the main things that I've come to realize is how much the sinking happened within a framework of security and defense, right? There were a lot of our master plans, a lot of our documents, our data analysis, all of it has been connected to the Ministry of Defense, which of course puts you at a position, as a person inhabiting, these spaces. What exactly is my political bearing, and and what does it mean for life to unfold in a space that's really looked at also from that perspective? And I think it just kind of made me focus more also on this question of habitability and inhabiting, also when we really are doing research, that we become aware that these are the material conditions that we're under now. And of course, there's been also kind of other layers of international kind of partners coming in also to add more into this layers of these traces of documenting and legal frameworks sometimes are not really readable even within the territory of Sudan, but rather, for example, it has a trace in like Qatar or UAE or Egypt and so on and so forth. So I think it just became very apparent that the parameters of the city aren't really the parameters of the
And you think there are a double logic, Sud global logic and North logic, and how are the two interact or not interact, and how is possible also that to go out of this logic?
I guess one of these possibilities is to really try to tend to that systemic severing of people's connection to their surrounding. I mean, people have all, space is utilitarian, of course, and people have always managed to sort of organize things in accordance to in accordance to their ways of being. I think one thing that I really have kind of started to sort of commit to is this ecological kind of emptying that happens with the expansion of cities, right? With the urbanization and globalization, and I think only with that can we, of course, tend to the question of inhabitability, but also look at how people have been strategizing also to live in spite of this type of change and camouflage of spatial organization. I think one question I've arrived to now actually is the need to answer the question of where do people go. So when certain groups of people, and this is of course with the state of the war in Sudan, it's a mass expulsion of people from certain
And
spaces.
come to the city or come?
I think coming to the city, but also being expelled from the rural, for example, because of its value, and that needs to be, other groups of people kind of need to be brought into that, brought into that space.
And what
And
can
of
be
course,
the tool of architects in these conditions?
I think,
With a strange question, but
I think it is a very important question, because then it becomes a matter of like, do the architects design a lens, by which we can really, see through and look at these different interconnections, or does it remain just a work that happens within property lines, which of course now we can't really determine that is, the actual, property line. So then I think there should be kind of a shift of what the role of an architect is in society. And I think the design of the lens to sort of see through, accompany a lot of the work with some research, with some also, I think, local strategizing, of people kind of redrawing the parameters of where they live and how they make their living, how they also, of course, mobilize to manage state impositions, which is, of course, a constant in the urban scape, right? There's always the threat of gentrifications, and I think communities have managed to do something about that. Yeah.
we have, in a classical way, you have your client who can be an investor or a private person, and then we have the regal of the states, and then you have the global forces. And I think this is really this new situation. And also we see in the moment that national forces come return, but not in a way to take away the global, but to bring the people inside of the question of what can do the architect on this is also boring, but what are these new conditions?
What are these, do you mean these connections between those layers?
Yeah.
I think it's that, our we need to kind of determine the stakeholder, I think that also kind of defines the type of relationships between these layers, right? So if we are, for example, talking about a kind of more localized knowledge, then, I think it's necessary for architects to do the work of also kind of designing transmissions between those three layers, right? So, should that be, designing certain translation platforms, right? Or certain developing more like community councils. And I do think now in this day and age, the local is global, that is I don't think there is kind of that distinction anymore in terms of the scale of it. And I look at the example, of course, of what's happening in Sudan. I mean, we're now also facing a very, I would say, a slightly different scenario, because the translation between those layers, the international and is done also, of course, through deployment of violence, right? It is, it is something that had been predetermined, and now we are in the process of seeing its sort of application by force, of course, and by activating military components. And that's, I think that's becoming something quite frightening, because we are in a time now where, corporations and big, bigger sort of international partners are able to activate military organizations that are
Local
completely
military
outside of,
organization.
and they can literally start and develop their projects in complete isolation from the actual state structure, right? And that's a frightening thing, because that technically doesn't have any sort of form of legibility or formalized structure. So it can keep going, right?
So we can say we have also localization who are absolutely out of territory. Yeah?
Totally. Both within I think the sort of political consciousness and the actual spatial imprint. They can't actually leave traces, right, of something. And that, I think, is a very, very it's like a bulldozing of everything, knowledges that have been inherited, systems, of course, infrastructures that have been used also, and alternative ones that are in development. And that just goes away really, really quickly. And, in Sudan, it only took a year.
So we can say we start the globalization with a kind of concurrence and global market, and we are now in a point of war, of globalization, of security, and this has coming to be the priority of all the also conception, also energy of.
Yes, I think it has found, like, the movement of capital, via, of course, the globalization now doesn't necessarily have to go through the very sort of visible and conventional channels anymore. And I think that means also, that there is a political paradigm that is also just going in parallel. And I think some of our roles should be connecting both and negotiating what people can participate in, and also how that can serve, what moments can actually serve us in this system.
We often say, where are the citizens? Where are the people? And in this kind of actions, we see that the people are the last. We do it for this, and I think designers or architects work for people at the end, but they are absolutely absent of the process.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're completely absent, but I think they're being rewritten. So citizenry also is kind of being reconstituted. I mean, I think also, as an example, with the big projects of smart cities that are now being, of course, set up in Middle East, Africa. I think of course, Google already, laid out the fiber cables for cities now that will basically envelop countries. So the territories are also really being rewritten. And in that new situation, I think citizenry also will shift. So people's roles also in building societies and imagining the future and expansion of these cities will probably rely on a whole different paradigm. I also think, of course, of data,
So my last question is how, as designer or as architect, you can introduce this social dimension in this situation, who is very difficult.
I think I always think about the translating what we can leverage, like what is it that people can negotiate with, and also what type of solidarities, I think one of the most necessary things, at least, is that, in every territory there has been, of course, mobilizing of trying to think about these negotiations. And I think that knowledge should be exchanged. So designing that way of making these efforts become transnational also would be a very good way to kind of deal with this wave of globalization, right? And these new redrawing of spatial territories, and also just the logic of it as a whole. I think, for example, the work that we're doing in, I think of Urban Front, which I'm a member, Urban Front Consultancy, that's one of the questions we always ask of, okay, how do we design then the transmission of that knowledge between territories, right? How did that happen? And then we can, of course, learn from each other, but also we can test out, prototype certain things. And it can, for example, have much more potential in a place more than the other. And that, of course, opens up a lot of possibilities as well.
So I think this is really the principal sentence, because we try more to say how can we be in this situation, is what Urban Front try to do is to go from the top and not only from the base.
Yes, exactly. And equally, yeah. So it has to, we kind of really try to meet each other in the middle, carrying what we learned from the starting point. And then that can move really across bigger, cover really bigger areas and bigger territories. And there's a lot to learn. There's so many people doing great work around these types of challenges.
Ola, thank you very much. It was a super exchange. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And you can see it on the Zoom this night. We will diffuse it. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Good day.
So thank you very much in the long term, and I give over to Mathieu. We could integrate, and I hope it's okay with you, Ola's position. She had the chance to cover today, and I think it's a very fruitful intro in your session, in your section. And you can take your time, because I think we have then in the next session, and then after just 2 people, you should not. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. The night is now.
So now we are going to have this series of I'm supervising these two next sessions. This first one is on the Global South, and we are supposed to host 3 interventions. So I can see 2 of the presenters, Dan Furukawa Marquez and Sohan are here online, and I'm really happy to welcome them, and maybe with a particular thought for Sohan, who's a longtime friend. And I'm sorry, and the third speaker is Kanaka Rao Nilapu, whom I don't see, but then maybe we'll start with Sohan and Dan. So I don't know in which order you want to start. I think in the program was Sohan first, and then Dan. So I guess here the presentations and discussions will be over within this framework of globalization, what has been, what is the construction of global South movements, global South identities. And if we are to start with Sohan, so I can introduce him as a Nepali scholar first. I met him he was doing his PhD in Jawaharlal Nehru University in India, which was not his country then. And then he worked as a researcher, as a scholar in a center in Nepal before the Martin Chautari, before starting working more recently for the Province Policy and Planning Commission of Madhya Pradesh in Nepal, so as an advisor to the government. And so I know that Sohan, you always have multiple stories to tell us, and I'd be glad to listen to some of them from now.
Matthew, can you listen me?
Yeah, I can
you
hear
hear
you.
me?
Well,
Yeah, okay, Matthew, first of all, thank you. After a long time seeing you is always a pleasure. I mean, it's been many, many years now. But good to see you. And I just rushed from one meeting and then I just came. So I have few thoughts to to tell about. As I was telling to you, as I was communicating that I will be talking about digital inequality. Some are more equal than others, you know. Is the famous quote that some animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. So I have two interventions to make for very briefly, and then we can go to the discussion. Currently, the position that I am in, I think that I am in a global south of global south. It's a province government which is in Nepal in the southern region. So that's why I think that I am a south of south of south. So triple south that I'm actually in.
quadruple, you can add. Quadruple
Oh,
south.
and then two things. One is and I will not go to the academic debate that we used to have, but the practical things that I am already facing now in a government and how the things are working here. So it's been 4 years that I am appointed as a planning commission vice chair, and a chair becomes a chief minister, and I am the vice chair. So who is like directly an advisor to the government, official advisor to the government. So in my tenure, I have to meet with many international organizations, UN agencies, and likewise, you name it, everyone and almost everyone is here presented. They come to support us. They come to support us sometime for health, sometime for education, sometime for agriculture, sometime for a remittance worker, migrant worker, and all these things. So in that setup, there is a remarkable thing that I'm noticing. One is that how we are increasing the inequality day by day, and the help that is coming to us is actually in a sense that inequality is always increasing every day, while they come to advise us, to come to help us, but they also in a way inside they are increasing the inequality, and our capacity to absorb that money, to absorb that help is getting limited every day, and some sort of dependency that we are getting into, on some cyclic dependency that we are getting into. So in form of digital inequality, we have most of the donor comes with the digital interventions. That okay, they will make this fiscal a very famous project that we have is $1 million project is on public finance management. That okay, we will improve our public finance management, and then there is a huge set of softwares and all these things, which is actually not working in a planning process very well, and it's something that is too difficult for us to manage. And then they come up with another set of project that okay, we will enhance your capacity to do that. So inequality in a digital spaces that we are seeing, and almost the e-governance thing is bombarded to us. Okay, you do this, e-governance everywhere, e-governance thing. And that e-governance thing is something that our society, our political setup, our bureaucratic setup is not able to absorb, and we face every day a problem in that. Second is economic inequality that we are facing, because the kind of the dependency that is coming up with those projects, we see a lot of economic inequalities. For example, the way the dependency has increased, our government system has unable to design the projects, a bigger scale projects. So our capacity has been so limited that if you can think of designing some bigger project of game-changing projects, which can actually enhance our capacity in every terms, that is being limited, and we are being day-to-day dependent on those agencies, the bigger agencies of the kind. Third thing is very important is that when they come to help us, they almost hire all the retired government officials with them. So, and then this is very surprising, and I used to joke that they tell that how the government secretaries are not efficient when they are in the government, but how come they became efficient when they join your offices of INGO and NGOs and all these things, you know. This is something of the inequality that we witness. Third, the final point that we witness is the ensuring the, inequality against the promises of the ensuring the equal opportunities. So on those equal opportunities, when the project comes to the government for us, for we the poor people of the global south, who are the south of the south of the south kind, but then on those interventions, we don't see our people anywhere around. And that suppresses our capacity.
I don't get you. What do you mean? You don't see your people anywhere around? What does it mean?
Like for example, those projects have people, right? They hire the people to do some technically advanced thing for us, for we the poor in the south. But on those interventions, we don't see our people, in the sense that if our people would have a capacity to work in those organizations, they could have learned by doing, and then capacity would have left with us. But those capacity, they come, they intervene, and then project is not going anywhere. But and after the project ends, they leave. But then the capacity and the legacy is not left to us. And this is the wide across the problem that we are witnessing in the way the globalization is coming to us in the government. Thank you. For now, this much.
Thank you very much. And could you tell us a bit about your own understanding of what are the push behind this digital all policy, like in terms of what are the ideological but also economic, industrial powers behind this? Like what is the point basically?
Oh, they come with a very... Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So they come with a very nice promises. They come with the promises that they will improve our governance, they will improve our capacity, they will improve our system, they will improve our public finance management, they will improve our service delivery in the government in a way that can be accessible to the people. They come with all the good promises, but those promises comes by the people that they hire, and it's kind of that promises is very seductive for us. That okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, is very nice. But at the end, when we review, softwares are built, digital interventions has been done, but then there is no one to feed the data on those software and interventions, because we don't have even a capacity to feed the data and inputs to that software interventions. And then we are left with the way as we were, as it is.
And the gap here is a gap in terms of human resources, as you say, but we've also been talking quite a long time together about the difference in infrastructure as well. Like maybe you can tell us a bit more, because for people who would be attending this session, they need also to know about the situation in Nepal more. And so what is maybe the gap or the contrast in between digital interventions and the actual situation in which these interventions are taking place?
Okay. Yes. How digital infrastructure, the way I understand now in the government, they come with the project. They come with mostly the software part of the project. That they will do this, they will make the software, they will do the other software. Software means non-physical interventions is where they mostly come with. And then that is how they can have consultancy and all these things that case imagined for them. But when we ask them that, okay, you need a physical infrastructure to inbuilt in that system in us, and then to invest in the human resources that we need to do these kinds of the thing. And then they say that, oh, no, these are the things. We are just here to help you to do a technical intervention, which is of a software kind of thing, not a hardware kind of thing. But actually, where we need the capacity is to build the physical infrastructure where our people could have trained and would have used that infrastructure. So they just come with some kind of software thing, and they just put it. But when they leave, everything is in despair. So there is a huge gap, and they don't want to invest in the physical needs that we have.
Which would be, maybe you can describe a bit the situation in Terai in Madhya Pradesh.
Like for example, they are doing the okay, one there is a big project which is of almost $100 million project of a public finance management. Okay, so what they will do is that in whole government system, there is a software that they have built, which is like a very powerful software in the way where all the government financial things, projects and all these things goes, and then you can have the system so that you can is the public finance management where the whole governance system will be strengthened. But they are not going to invest in the physical needs of data centers of our own, so that we can have a control on our data centers, datas. So even for our own datas, we have to ask them. And the raw datas that we are asking for them for our own self is so difficult to get. So it's something like inequality in the sense that I don't know how do I explain that. It's like they will only do the training and investment of a very superficial level. But when we need actually the capacity to do the internal capacity building of our own governance system, there they say that, oh no, this is your work, this is not our work.
And in terms of, you were talking about data, so I'm jumping on it, but like in terms of ownership, how does it work? Like the production of data. So are you the one supposed to, I didn't get if you are the ones supposed to produce this data, or if some companies are just also collect data from your own services that they would, and who is in the end holding to this data?
The data is actually the software.
I think I lost your sound. So
it's a layer. It's a layer in the sense that suppose in the province government produces the data, but the
Sohan, I think maybe it's mine, but I lost your sound kind of. I mean, I hear
I
you,
can
but
listen
very
you.
far. Okay. good.
Okay, I can listen to you. So what happens is that we are a province government, right? So in Nepal, we have the three layers of government. One is the federal government, one is the province government, and then we have the local government. So what happens is the data is produced in all the three layers. So what happens is that we see in most of the digital governance system, the password is limited, the login password is limited to the data that we will be producing. But the password do not allow us the data that we need for our own to download or to use that for our own purpose. Take for example, recently we have one big project where because this my province is one of the highest labor migrating people to Gulf countries. So we have the digital. So we have some project called digital profiling of the migrant workers. So that system is built by the vendor, and that is supported by the bigger donor agencies. And that software is in Kathmandu, in the federal agency, but the data is produced in the local government and in the provincial government. That data is not at all produced in the federal agency. But they ensure that all the data, and then when we asked for our own research, that okay, give us the data, raw data that we have collected, and it's been almost 1 month that we have putting official letters and we are not getting a data. So and then when we ask the government, they say, oh, that is with the vendor, and that vendor is the donor, so somehow is connected to them, and then we are not able to get our own data in accessible form. When we ask that, okay, you put that digital infrastructure in the province, if the province produces the data, then you should put that infrastructure in the province so that we will have a control of the data. Then they say that, oh, no, you don't have a capacity to do that. And then you have no people, you have nothing. So it's better that it is in some center in Kathmandu, and then they will control and then they will help you to do that. But when we ask that data as ownership and all this thing, we feel shortfall in that. And there are many projects like this that I am been witnessing every day during the policy making challenges.
And maybe another thing that matters also, it's also all this digitalization. It's not coming only through the, let's say, the global or the national institutions. It's also coming from the people themselves. And since you are talking about the migrant population, you have this colleague that you might know, Mohamed Javed Alam. He's been working also on digitization, and he has been looking at the migrant workers from North India, from UP or Bihar, and how they also bring back themselves a lot of uses in relation to digital. So I would like to know, like in Terra, if that's something that you see, that people are bringing back devices and also uses like.
Yes. Oh, yes. And everybody. Oh, there is a joke now. Because they bring the devices, our government has put a policy that when you come to our airports, you cannot bring more than 2 devices. So yes, that's the trend. And then there is a huge protest for this, that government is disallowing us to bring the devices and all this thing, because the government wanted taxes. And then if you bring the devices from outside, you cannot get the taxes like excise and other VAT and all the things that we collect. So the government think that, oh, if all the digital devices will come from the migrating worker from their country, respective place of work, respective workplace to this country, where we will get a VAT and tax. So government has in airport not more than 2 devices, or one person cannot carry 2 devices, more than 2 devices. So there is a huge uproar and there is a huge protest in the social media and everywhere that, oh, this is not possible. So yes, they do bring devices, they do bring hardwares, they do things, but I am talking mostly in a government setup, how this digitalization things is.
Okay. And could you tell us, like, about within the last 10 years, how you've seen the situation evolve in terms of this digitalization, digital use in Terra itself? Like
Oh, yes, it's increasing. This is increasing in a phenomenal rate. So in a phenomenal rate, in the sense that uh, now actually people wants to learn to use the devices and to use the services from the digital medium. So this is very popular nowadays. But the only thing is that in the government system, I mean, people are demanding that. But in a government system, we are not able to supply that interventions effectively. And there is where this bigger donor agencies come to do that supply from the government side, that how you can make that e-governance possible in that setup. But we see the gap in that inequality also.
Mm. And what about the news from the country, like in terms of the news from Terra, in terms of the political situation in the region?
Now politically we are stable because we have enough of the things in last 2 decades of insurgency and all these things. So now it things peaceful. One thing is good that now our democracy has taken a route in a sense that now the election is predictable. At least now you know that in 5 years there is going to be an election, that's for sure. So that is one insurity. In a governance mechanism, and it's a long fight that we had in Nepal for long time, insurgency. And because of that product, now we have some inclusion in the system. So, so, so that inclusion has led to the many opportunities, and that inclusion has also led to the many possibilities of aspiring for the things. So this is stable, but yes, there is and I think the constitution and the insurgency movement were the progressive movement. But now we are witnessing also the counter progressive movements also. So some right-wing tendencies of things is picking up in last few, and also that is picking up because the progressive movements has not been able to deliver many things that we have promised in the constitution.
And the right-wing
So
tendency you are talking about, is it in relation to the political situation in India also, or?
Partly yes, but more than that, it's Nepal's homegrown political thing also, because we connect our nationalism mostly against India. So that's the very unfortunate part of our politics. So that's also the reason that the too much of nationalism, and sometimes the too much of nationalism with a very segregated, hollow, uh, um, and uh, and also yes, the counter movement is also to reverse the democratic gains that we have got with long struggle of many social movements, political movements, and all these things. So uh, so there is the challenge also. Yes.
Well, thank you, Sohan. I don't know if you want to add anything. If not,
No, I think
there
I will
is,
listen others also, and if there is something, then
so
or
after this, you
mhm,
might want to check. So there, we will now present a presentation that has been recorded by a panelist who's Julien Mallet, who is a researcher in anthropology, working in Madagascar mostly. And after this, if you want to stay, Sohan, with us, there will be presentations on health and health technologies by researchers you might know of, some of them working in India as well.
Matthew, I think here is the office time, so now I have to catch up for office. So if you suggest me that if I can leave, I will leave in
We will send you the link. We will send you the link.
yes, but I would love to see the recorded interview, so do send me the link.
Yes. Have a nice
Okay.
day, and thank you very much for having been with us. It was a pleasure.
Yes, pleasure and good to see you after a long time. Let's catch up sometime very soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.
Alors, bonjour à toutes et à tous, chères étudiantes, chers étudiants. Comme je vous l'avais expliqué, je voulais vous demander, dans le cadre d'une sorte de marathon du GRIP, le Global Research Institute of Paris, qui travaille sur la globalisation, où on va organiser pendant 24 heures, en fonction des différents fuseaux horaires, à travers le monde, des discussions partagées sur la mondialisation et un peu les changements depuis 25 ans. Et moi, je trouvais intéressant d'avoir votre point de vue, si vous avez des choses à dire, dans vos parcours depuis votre scolarité jusqu'à maintenant, ou dans votre quotidien, ici à Tana, de Malgache. Est-ce que vous avez des choses à dire sur ce thème, sur ce sujet?
Moi, personnellement, j'ai moins de 25 ans. Donc, pendant cette dernière 25 ans, j'ai tout le temps, depuis petit, vécu dans la mondialisation. J'ai été bercé par des phénomènes qui se sont passés ailleurs qu'à Madagascar, comme par exemple, j'ai regardé les dessins animés comme on l'a dit, les animés japonais ou les dessins animés américains, comme Cartoon Network par exemple. Dans mon quotidien, j'écoute de la musique occidentale, mais aussi orientale qui vient de l'Asie. Et tout ça, quoi. Je me permets de dire que cette mondialisation a fait que je me suis ouvert à des autres horizons, autres que vécu ici à Madagascar. Donc, par exemple, je connais ce qui se passe au Brésil, dans les forêts amazoniennes, par exemple. Et c'est tout ça, quoi. La mondialisation est intéressante pour moi, personnellement.
Et en plus, avec l'influence des réseaux sociaux, donc je pense qu'on suit naturellement la mondialisation parce que tous les jeunes sont connectés. Et il n'y a pas que les jeunes, il y a aussi les vieux, mais voilà. Et on parlait tout à l'heure de K-pop, par exemple. Donc sur les réseaux sociaux, ils envoient beaucoup de vidéos de K-pop à Madagascar, où ils font même des concours de K-pop, où on voit vraiment que les jeunes, en fait, ils vivent vraiment comme en suivant vraiment ce que les jeunes de l'extérieur ils font. Et on fait des concerts, on fait des réunions par exemple, de jeunes intéressés par les animés. Du coup, il y a des jeunes qui se voient, qui se déguisent parfois même, et en cosplay.
Avant le XXIe siècle, les jeunes malgaches ont une certaine volonté de s'ouvrir, d'avoir une relation avec l'extérieur. Mais le manque de moyens leur font souvent défaut. Heureusement qu'à partir du XXIe siècle, il y a donc les nouvelles technologies de l'information et de la communication, l'Internet, le Facebook et ainsi de suite. Les jeunes commencent à connaître l'extérieur, à avoir des relations avec l'extérieur. Par exemple, à Madagascar, sans téléphoner, sans envoyer des lettres sur fax, sur des postes, l'on peut tout de suite parler sur Facebook, l'on peut tout de suite utiliser donc des moyens plus faciles pour pouvoir s'échanger. De même que la famille, donc l'on est au courant de tout ce qui se passe en dehors de notre milieu, en dehors de notre société, tout simplement à des appareils perfectionnés d'aujourd'hui.
Est-ce que vous pensez que, je vais prendre un exemple récent et tout, votre président a construit un magnifique téléphérique qui dessert le stade Massina jusqu'au lycée français et qui passe par Ancats, votre université. Donc, grâce à des financements extérieurs, on est dans des technologies mondialisées. Vous, en tant qu'étudiant, vous pensez que vous allez beaucoup l'emprunter, ce téléphérique, pour venir ici?
Non. Pour nous jeunes étudiantes aussi, la téléphérique est un peu chère.
Moi, je pense que même maintenant, la plupart des étudiants, pour payer un bus de 600 arias, ils évitent déjà parce qu'ils préfèrent utiliser leur argent pour acheter à manger.
Toujours de mon propre vécu personnel, hein, vu que j'étais baigné dans tout ça, je l'ai dit tout à l'heure. Donc, il y a des moments où moi, je n'ai pas trop de références dans la culture malgache. Parce que peut-être que j'ai été trop baigné dans cette modalité.
Il y a vraiment des changements puisque avec les Android, c'est déjà accessible à plusieurs en malgache actuellement. Donc avec les Android, ils vont dépasser leur culture. Ils vont dépasser leur culture tout en voyant donc les autres cultures du monde. Raison pour laquelle la mondialisation, donc, la mondialisation ne s'effectue pas tout simplement en ville, mais ça se répartit même dans les campagnes.
Pour moi, j'ai constaté quelque chose sur l'influence de la mondialisation, surtout sur la tradition, car chez nous, dans les régions du sud-est, il y a le Sambat. C'est une fête de pratique de circoncision et à cause de la mondialisation, plusieurs personnes, même les organisateurs, ne respectent plus les traditions auparavant. Et ça a un impact sur les générations futures, car les générations futures ne connaissent plus le vrai tradition du Sambat.
En ce qui concerne la mondialisation, donc, suite à ce que je disais tout à l'heure, toute chose à refaire. En ce qui concerne les informations, les documentations. Actuellement, donc, sur Internet, surtout sur Facebook, il y a des films porno. Non seulement des films porno entre hommes et femmes, mais entre hommes et hommes, femmes et femmes, que l'on appelle homosexuels. Et le problème même, actuellement, c'est que il y a des films porno entre animaux et hommes. Ça existe, mais l'on a difficile d'en parler puisque c'est vraiment très, très tabou donc, pour les malgaches. Mais la question est de savoir, c'est un problème qui ne se pose pas pour les malgaches tout simplement. Mais je crois que c'est pour le monde même, la destruction du monde, donc de l'identité humaine, que les hommes sont différents des animaux. Là est le problème, selon moi.
Vous voulez...
En fait, les Malagasy, ils sont dans la mondialisation, mais à leur rythme. Ça signifie que, d'une certaine manière, je pense que je vais dire ainsi, c'est que les Français, par exemple, je doute fort que ceux qui vivaient dans les années 10 ou même à la fin du 19e siècle penseraient qu'un jour les Françaises voteraient. Mais c'est arrivé, et ça fait partie d'une vague qui s'est passée en Occident. Et c'est ça aussi avec Madagascar. En fait, par exemple, j'ai fait des recherches sur Radamateu et la musique. Et j'ai remarqué qu'avant, à Madagascar, avant le règne de Radamateu, en IRM, on ne laissait pas les hommes et les femmes danser en se touchant, par exemple, même en se tenant avec la main. C'est avec Radamateu que c'est arrivé parce que Radamateu s'est ouvert avec la culture occidentale. Donc, peut-être qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons notre vision de ce qu'il faut recevoir et nous recevons des choses très rapidement quand nous pensons que c'est bien. Comme par exemple, l'Internet était à Madagascar déjà à la fin des années 90. Donc, ça signifie que quand nous pensons que c'est bien, nous le retenons.
En fait, c'est par rapport, vous avez parlé du téléphérique tout à l'heure, c'est qu'en fait à Madagascar, il y a deux extrêmes. Donc je pense que le téléphérique, c'est vraiment à l'extrême droite, disons. Et de l'autre extrême, on a encore des problèmes, par exemple, juste par rapport à l'eau, à la maison, par exemple. Tous les jours, on est obligé d'acheter des bidons d'eau. Donc c'est pour notre quotidien, c'est beaucoup plus urgent d'aller acheter de l'eau que d'aller en téléphérique. Parce qu'on a vraiment beaucoup de problèmes d'eau, où on n'a pas d'eau pendant une semaine à la maison. Et on est vraiment obligé de dépenser énormément tous les jours juste pour l'eau. Le président, il veut qu'on aille en téléphérique alors qu'on n'a même pas d'eau à la maison.
En fait, moi, je crois que à Madagascar, on ne vit pas la mondialisation, on la subit.
L'université d'Afghanistan est donc un exemple de la mondialisation avec les influences étrangères comme les départements, comme dans les départements, dans les facultés des sciences humaines et lettres. Il y a des influences russes, anglaises, allemandes et la prophétie.
Chinoise, ah oui.
Chinoise.
La mondialisation, donc, pour les Malgaches, ils la suivent, mais à leur rythme et selon leur choix. Ils choisissent donc ce qu'ils veulent selon ces valeurs et ils apprennent donc à accepter les autres valeurs étrangères. Et cela donc dépendra donc aussi non seulement de nous, mais des générations futures, de ce que nous ferons de la mondialisation.
Pour moi, en tant qu'étudiant en sciences sociales, pour moi, la mondialisation est une arme double tranchante à Madagascar parce qu'elle, d'un côté, nous pouvons avoir des bénéfices par des suppressions des frontières, suppression des frontières sociales ou économiques, mais pourtant, il y a aussi des méfaits de la mondialisation comme la culturation ou des autres aspects. Mais pour moi, la mondialisation, elle est là et nous ne pouvons pas nier parce qu'elle est déjà là. Mais ce que nous pouvons faire donc, c'est de profiter de la mondialisation. Et c'est tout.
Pour moi, donc, en un mot, la mondialisation associe trois choses. C'est tout complexe, incluant donc la quête d'identité, de liberté et d'égalité au cœur de ce village global. Voilà, je termine avec ça.
Oui.
Pour moi, donc, la mondialisation, ce sont les relations, plus exactement, les relations internationales. J'étais déjà en Suisse, en Allemagne et en France. Ce que j'aimerais que le monde, que les jeunes d'aujourd'hui puissent réaliser, c'est que les cultures ne seront pas des barrages. Invitant les jeunes de l'extérieur à Madagascar Et s'il vous plaît, invitez-nous à vous rejoindre pour que l'on soit en harmonie.